Wayne Voles here with Profits Unlimited. I'd like to welcome everybody back to our YouTube channel. Hey, I know I'm normally in my Profits Unlimited shirt, but I was in this morning working on some proposals and I got to thinking, this is where most companies go wrong, is the proposal process. We give ourselves a lot of different reasons on why we're charging what we're charging. And this is going to be a very short video, but just how you can change your business. And if you just give me just a few minutes to cover some mistakes that we made, I think it's something that's it could be potentially a life changer for you, really. And I sincerely mean that. You look at it, how do we come up with the price we're going to charge for the service? The first thing we think about a lot of times, you look around here and you think, well, I'm small, I can do it cheaper. Can you really? The mindset says, well, my overhead's not as great. But the reality of that is, yeah, you're small, but even though your overhead's not as great, your use rates on that equipment are not going to be the same as a larger company. And the more we can use a piece of equipment, the more we can bring down the cost per hour of operation of that equipment. Simply think of it like this. Just look at, I'm just going to pick somebody out. Ford Motor Company, for an example. Okay? Their production line. If they're sitting there running F-250s, the worst thing they want is that assembly line to stop, right? And that's because that drives that cost per unit up higher. Every minute that line's down or every hour that line's down, I'm sure those guys know what that costs that company. So just because you're small and your overhead's not as great doesn't mean that you can do something cheaper. Maybe a guy that's running, 5 days a week or 6 days a week with a lawnmower, for an example, his hours of use is greater on that mower. Now you may be thinking, okay, well, regardless, I'm going to get 1,800 hours or 2,000 hours or whatever number of hours you think you're going to get out of your mower, and that might be a true statement. But if I'm using that piece of equipment more often, my cost per hour on that unit goes down, rather than if I'm a part-time operation and I'm got a $10,000 lawnmower that I'm running 150 hours a year. So that's where we don't get lost in that I'm small, I can do it cheaper, and we need a much longer video than this to get more in detail to explain that thoroughly. But that creates a lot of problems for you. You go out and you build a business, and let's say you are doing it part-time and you got 20 jobs or 30 jobs or 40 jobs that you're mowing. The problem you run into at that point is, if you want to grow that business and you say, well, I don't have the overhead, and I don't have this and I don't have that, and that company continues to grow a little bit year after year, and you decide you're going to go into this full time, then you've got those jobs under bid. So that's one thing to consider. Next thing I'd like to consider real quickly, and this actually came into mind when I was sitting here working on this proposal I'm working on right now, is what I call the guess method. It's why I was making $20 an hour at my real job, or $15 an hour, whatever you were making at your real job before you got into the lawn and landscape business. Or maybe you're doing this part-time and your real job is you're a fireman, or you're doing something else and you've got hours that you can sell to somebody else doing mowing, let's say, for an example. But you can't necessarily translate that $20 an hour job that you have as an employee to, man, I can mow 3 yards right in a row, get $20 a yard, that's $60 an hour, and that's really great money. Well, that may be good money for you, but the difference between you mowing yards for $20 and you making $20 an hour as an employee working for somebody else is, your employee has all the additional overhead. So even though you've got $60 coming in for mowing those 3 yards, you don't necessarily have $60 profit. And certainly you don't have $60 profit. No way around it. That's just the fact of the matter. A lot of guys, when I'm talking to them too, in a presentation or a seminar somewhere, they'll say, Wayne, you just don't know our market. Our market will never pay it. Well, here's what I want everybody that ever watches a Profits Unlimited video of mine. You always hear me say that I will never tell anybody what to charge. I don't know your market. I know my market. But even more importantly than knowing my market is knowing what it costs me to do the job. Because whether I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, Siesta Key, Florida, Boise, Idaho, Detroit, Michigan, Maine. It doesn't matter where you are, but what do you need to know? You need to know what it costs you per hour to operate. And if you don't know that, and these are the most common reasons we don't know that I'm covering in this video, we let all these other pricing methodologies run our business for us. So, no, I don't know your market. I know my market. You need to understand your market. But once you understand your market, take that to the next level, or even before you understand your market, sit down and calculate what are your costs per hour of operation. What's it cost you to mow a lawn? And just because every one of your competitors are doing it for X number of dollars doesn't make it right. And that leads me to the next thing that I used many years ago on pricing my jobs. I said, well, the competition's charging X number of dollars a lawn. It must be right. Well, he's charging this and he's charging that and he's charging that. What I found out really quickly was that he didn't know and she didn't know and this one didn't know. Okay, I'm getting in the middle. They didn't know what they were charging either. And then when I start looking at the failure rates for our industry, it really became quite clear that I couldn't trust my competition either. It's not that the competition don't want to tell you the right answer, but what I can tell you in traveling across the United States and North America as a whole, talking with contractors, is that probably 5% of this industry, and that may be a very conservative number, really understands why they charge what they charge. So don't count on your competitor. It's not a bad source to look at necessarily, but don't count on them to make the pricing for your company. It might put you right out of business. The next thing I'd like to consider is, well, man, we don't do any of that. We just ask the client, what's it going to take to get the job? Well, what's wrong with asking the client what it's going to take to get the job? I want you guys to think about that for a second. What's wrong with that mindset? When you go to the customer and you say, what's it going to take to get the job, Ms. Smith? Whether it's a residential client or a commercial client. Think about that for a second. Give me a little sip of a little water here. What have you told the customer when you say, what's it going to take to get the job? In my opinion, I think you've told them a couple things. I think number one, you've told them that you might be hungry and you might need to work. And when you ask the potential customer, what's it going to take to get the job? Are they really going to tell you the right answer? Are they really going to say, well, we've been paying $30 or $40 or $1,000, whatever number they throw in there? They may be paying one rate and then actually coming back and telling you something else. Because, well, this guy's hungry, man, I'll get it done for less. So don't ask the customer, hey, what's it going to take to get the job? When you arrive on site, you're doing a walk around with the customer and they want to say, hey, this is what we've been paying. Professionally, just ask them. Say, before you tell me what you've been paying, could we do our site evaluation and let us price the job? Because I'm going to price the job based on what I know our company needs to charge, not what you've been paying. Well, Wayne, that all sounds good, but you know what? If you can't get where they were at, we don't need to be even having this walk around. Well, you know what? They've done you a great favor. You say, fine, that's fine. You don't want to be the next guy in that barrel. So you just pack up, say, hey, thanks. If we can help you in the future, let me know. But I need to price this job according to what time I think it's going to take and what materials I think it's going to take us, and not what you were paying the other company. Because if you were happy with them, where are they at? Well, they weren't showing up. Well, maybe they couldn't show up. Maybe you didn't pay them enough to show up. Maybe they weren't charging enough to show up. And I find that to be a very common problem for our industry. On why we can't show up is because we haven't charged enough, we've overbooked our work, and at the end of the day, we only have so many hours of daylight, right? So if we can't get it done in the length of time that we have to get it done in, we start hurrying, we start rushing, and then we can't get the job done. So I just say, don't ask the client what it's going to take to get the job done. Ask the client to give you the professional courtesy to let you do your proposal, present your proposal and go from there. Had a good friend of mine, Tom Simpson. And Tom is, he's deceased now, but he was in the business a long time. Really a great friend of mine. That actually taught me a lot. But many years ago, when we were talking about pricing and whatnot, I asked Tom, I said, Tom, how do you price your jobs? He said, honestly, Wayne, he said, I use the dartboard method. I said, the dartboard method? I'm like, explain that to me. He said, man, every day I just come in my shop, grab a dart, and throw a dart at the dartboard, and wherever it hits, that's what we charge that day. I said, are you serious? He's like, yeah, some days it's like that. He says, hey, some days we're getting more and some days we're getting less. And I said, all right, maybe that mindset works, Tom, but is there a minimum sitting over there on your dartboard that you don't go under? I'm all in for throwing a dart maybe if that's what works, but as long as something on that dartboard is a minimum of what you have to have per hour. And he said, I've never really thought about that. He said, normally it's based on the type of job I'm bidding. So I'm not going to say that's wrong or right. I say it's funny. It certainly is a funny way to price a job. But if you know your cost per hour of operation, and that's the lowest number over there on that dartboard that you're going to be using that day, then maybe that's a fun thing to do. But if you're using a dartboard just because, well, I know I'm bidding this and it's not going to bring the money that, in this area that it'll bring somewhere else, that may not be the best thing to do. And we all bid jobs in different parts of our markets. I get that too. Clients' expectations are different. There's a lot of things that come into play. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure we're not underselling ourselves. And this last item I'd like to discuss with you, I got from another friend of mine. He was attending a seminar that I was doing. And I give a big shout out to my old buddy Tim Gadgen. And Tim Gadgen, he's no longer in the lawn and landscaping business, but Tim's still working for himself in a different industry. But he told me, he says, Wayne, he said, I got something you need to add to that list of ways we charge our customers. And I said, Tim, what's that? Tim said, Wayne, he says, I'm going to tell you, I use the flinch method. He said, I keep going till they flinch. I got the biggest kick out of that. Maybe you got a kick out. Maybe you're laughing a little bit too, like I did then. But, Tim's like, I use the flinch method. I said, explain that, Tim. He said, I look them right in the eye when we're doing our proposal, sitting at the table with them, and I keep going until I see them back up and start flinching and getting nervous. He said, then I know I'm high enough. And I kind of thought about it a minute. I said, Tim, it's pretty funny. I said, I think to a certain extent we all use the flinch method. Some of us call it suggestive selling. So whether you're using the flinch method, the dartboard method, I'm small, I can do it cheaper. I ask the client, I ask the competitor. Those are all ways that we price jobs, but they're probably not the best way we can price jobs, because there's no methodology involved with that format in pricing. And I find a whole lot of contractors, including myself, back in many, many years ago, that's how we priced our jobs. Set yourself apart. Be different. Why can't we trust our competitor to help us price jobs? And when I say help price a job, if your competitor tells you, hey, understand cost per hour of operation, calculate your cost per hour of operation for your company, that's the kind of help you need. For the competitor that says you need to be making $60 an hour, and I see that all the time on forums. What I can tell you younger guys, and I've been doing this business 39 years now. I started my landscaping and lawn business in 1979. In 39 years, I've been hearing $60 an hour is the right answer. I'm not sure that's the right answer for you or me or the next person. Simply calculate cost per hour of operation. If we could count on our competitor to give us such great knowledge, why are the failure rates so high for our industry? That's all you ever got to ask yourself. Why are the failure rates so high if the information that we're gaining from a competitor or a market, whether it's, again, Siesta Key, Sarasota, Atlanta, Georgia, Dallas, Texas, doesn't matter where you're at. All of our markets are different. But the consistent within all of our markets is that we all buy trucks, trailers, lawnmowers, weed eaters, all kinds of equipment, right? Snow and ice management equipment. Sit down and calculate what it costs per hour to utilize that equipment within your market. Because the top 3 reasons that we're failing as an industry, and this is backed up. You can do some research on this yourself. But the top 3 reasons that we're failing, number 1, what do you think it is before I say it? What do you think the number 1 reason is before I say it? Lack of training. Lack of training is the number 1 reason that a business fails. And when you look at it, a lot of people say, well, it's pricing the job. Well, pricing the job's part of it, but lack of training. Number 2 reason is pricing for profit. So we're not properly trained. We're not pricing our jobs right. How'd I tell you, with our company, what do we do wrong? We went out and bid our jobs wrong, right? We were bidding our jobs wrong, just like a lot of companies in this industry. When we bid our jobs wrong, we get too many jobs that aren't bid right. We can't complete the job in a timely manner for the customer. That takes us to number 3, the 3rd reason that we're going out of business, and that's customer service and retention. So when we look at it, we got lack of training, pricing for profit, and customer service and retention are the 3 most common problems that put us out of business. Say that with me one time. Lack of training, pricing for profit, and customer service and retention. Now, when you look at all 3 of those things, what's the good thing about it? What's the good thing about the most common reasons we're going out of business? Because we can turn any negative into a positive. And this is where you need to turn that negative into a positive for your company. How about we look at training, pricing, and customer service and retention? What's the nice thing with it? We control. When I say we, you control, and you control, and you control, we all control the amount of training we have, how we price our jobs, and what if we had a better handle on training and pricing? If we had a better handle on those 2 things, we don't need as many customers. And if we're better trained and we're charging what we got to have, we have less customers. What are those customers going to get? They're going to receive better service because we don't have to rush through the job. And that, my friends, is today's lesson. Get a better handle on training and pricing. Service less customers and earn more profits. Because as I always say, profit is not a dirty word. But it's up to you to make it happen. Check us out on our podcast, YouTube channel, and I look forward to talking to you guys again real soon with something else that I know will help your business. Don't go to the school of hard knocks. Take advantage of the knowledge that we have at Profits Unlimited in the 39 years of running our lawn and landscape business. Everything we talk about is not going to, be the best thing you ever heard. I guarantee it. But I know for sure we've got some good things in play that will help your company be more successful and more profitable. Have a great day.